Welcome back, Fantasy Endgame community. I'm Pierre here with more fantasy baseball advice to help you dominate your drafts in 2022. The season is almost upon us, so let's get that last minute draft advice going. Here's some more must-have pitchers. I already gave you 5 names that I liked earlier on in the offseason. Here are 5 more guys that I think are absolute must targets. Now let's talk about general draft strategy. As far as starting pitching goes, I know a lot of people love to lock down that ace. Some people going pocket aces. Personally, I want to get one guy who is an ace, but you don't have to do that in the first 2 rounds because there are aces available later if you know where to find them. And my guy is Freddy Peralta. That's right, available after pick 50 overall, so you can wait a few rounds and then get a guy who, I mean, let's face it, he is an ace, even though he's not being treated as such just because he hasn't done it for several years yet. But I'll tell you, in 3 of the 4 seasons that he has pitched in the majors, he's had an expected batting average below 223, 94 percentile or better. This is somebody who consistently knows how to get batters out. And oh, by the way, he strikes out a ton of guys, 33% strikeout rate last year. He has a 4-pitch mix. He keeps tweaking a little bit and it makes it better. Some guys you worry when they mess around with their pitch mix. In this case, he has found the magic weapon, and that is his slider. Okay, so Freddy Peralta is somebody who knows how to pile up the strikeouts. He has been healthy so far, thankfully, and he plays in a pretty favorable division there, the NL Central. Reds selling off pieces, the Pirates are there, Cubs, I mean, they're the Cubs. It's not going to be a murderer's row of a schedule he's going to face. I really like his ADP as a guy who really could be a top 10 fantasy starting pitcher, but you don't have to pay that price. So Freddy Peralta is the guy that I'm going to have more often than not as my SP1 this year. All right, next up, if you're looking for your number 2 starting pitcher, no better place to look than San Francisco. Of course, a haven for pitchers. They added a lot of pieces, but I'm looking at Logan Webb. Okay, so he's a guy I've honestly had to come around a little bit on this offseason, really digging into the numbers. I mean, we know he did in the playoffs. I don't want to overreact, right? Recency bias to the postseason, right? Anybody can have a playoff run. A lot of people overreacted to Randy Arozarena, his massive playoff output a year ago, and he was still good, but he wasn't a fantasy monster last year. Maybe overdrafted a little bit. Don't want to overdraft Logan Webb. I think it's fair where he's going, though, because this guy who's really taken a step forward. It wasn't just the playoffs where he did his thing. The whole second half of last season, he went 7-0 with a 2.71 ERA and a 1.04 whip. He's striking out about a batter per inning, so he won't get you quite the strikeout rate as a guy like Peralta or some of the guys that are going earlier him, which is why he can be taken as a top 50 pick. But again, he's got a great situation there pitching in San Francisco. We know the park factor in his favor. This is somebody who's taken a step forward. He's kind of outperformed his projections in terms of his talent. He will not blow hitters away. Again, he's not a dominant type pitcher, but he knows how to pitch. He's got a lot of moxie, and he's shown that he can do it for a season. I think he will at least do what he did last season. Not expecting him to take this massive leap forward and just dominate. But again, you don't need that at this point when you can wait and get him as your second pitcher going around pick 70 in fantasy drafts. So if I'm waiting on my second starting pitcher, which I usually am, Logan Webb is a guy that I want to have. All right, now, believe it or not, we're going to talk about Sonny Gray. That's right, Sonny Gray probably wasn't too high on my radar before a couple weeks ago, but that trade does change things. So believe it or not, moving to Minnesota, a big upgrade for him. So we know Cincinnati, the Great American Ballpark, is basically a hitter's haven here, a bandbox. It was number 1 in terms of home run factor, number 3 in overall park factor. Not a good thing for pitchers. He did pretty well, but here's the thing. Going to Minnesota now, number 20 in home run factor and 21 overall. And that American League Central, kind of like the NL version, not the strongest. Yeah, the White Sox have a great lineup. But then you got teams like the Guardians, the Tigers. Yeah, they're better, but still, this is a team that's going to strike out a lot. So I like Gray just on the movement of teams alone. He's going to get a big bump. And this is a guy that really doesn't get shelled too often. I like the floor here, and we've seen that he has performed well after getting traded a couple times now. When he went to New York, when he went to Cincinnati, he responds pretty well. I don't think he'll be shaken at all. He's a veteran, as I mentioned. So I like Gray because he's going really late after pick 150. That might slide up a little bit, but still, I think people are sleeping on him. He's shown before that he can be really productive. And so even though, again, he's not a dominant guy, he's somebody I really like for the value. So taking him towards kind of like the end of your rotation, Sonny Gray is a guy I'm going to grab a lot of. All right, now let's get to my favorite sleeper slash breakout pick of this season for starting pitchers. That is Luis Garcia of the Houston Astros. You know the Astros are usually filled with names that you want to target in the starting rotation. Guys like Verlander, McCullers when he's healthy. All right, but Garcia is really the guy I'm going to have most of because look at what he did. Last year, a lot of people really weren't on him. He has a 5-pitch mix, and out of all those pitches, every pitch except for the fastball got at least a 36% whiff rate. That's right, 36% whiff rate. That is insane. All right, so if he can incorporate his off-speed stuff, his breaking stuff a little bit more and rely a little less on the fastball, I mean, just imagine what he could do. He was already solid last year, but I really think we could see a huge jump, maybe over 30% strikeout rate. Not going to go so far as to say he's the next Freddy Peralta, but this guy I think a lot of people are just sleeping on for whatever reason. Held batters to under a 225 expected batting average. So already was solid last year, and we know Houston knows how to develop pitchers. I really think this is a guy waiting towards the end part of your draft. A lot of times he doesn't even get drafted, which I don't understand, or if he does, it's pretty late. Him and Josiah Gray, who I know I've mentioned in other videos, those are my breakout picks for starting pitcher this year. He's a guy I'm going to have any chance I can get. And then my last pick is Patrick Sandoval of the Angels. Now, there are some question marks with him. First of all, he's a little banged up right now heading into spring training, and the Angels have about 8 guys fighting for rotation spots. I think he'll secure one. Not too worried about that. We know Tani only goes, every few days. Griffin Canning's already hurt again. Sandoval has a really good chance to earn that spot. He was good last year. He's kind of become a trendy pick among analysts this year as far as a breakout pitcher. And I agree. I mean, you see, this is a guy who induces a ton of ground balls. He's got that sinker that works, and he has a really effective changeup. Not somebody who strikes out a ton, but just enough to be a fantasy asset, 26%. But again, a slight bump up there. And then we talk about someone who can keep those low ratios. We could have a fantasy stud on our hands. All right, so there are some question marks, but again, you're waiting towards pick 200 for him. This is somebody who has massive upside. I like what he brings to the table. So Patrick Sandoval is another guy that I would say I must have as much as possible. All right, fantasy endgame community, that is it. Those are my must-have pitchers, part 2 for the 2022 draft season. Good luck this year. Keep it tuned here. We're going to be available all season long to help you win your baseball leagues. All right, thanks for watching.